Hello, everybody. Randy Crabtree here, host of the Unique CPA podcast and partner with Tri-Merit Specialty Tax Professionals. Here live, recording live at the Bridging the Gap conference, sitting down right now talking with Kristen Keats. Kristen, welcome to the interview room.
Thank you, Randy. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here as well. So before we get into, we're going to talk about a few things. Before we get into it, you've been here day and a half now, or whatever it is. Any thoughts on the conference? Any learning things? Just overall, what have you thought of the conference?
It's been so great, truly unique conference. And I love the focus on health and wellness. I love the focus on community. It's been so great, and I've got pages of notes that I've written from all the speakers, lots of quotes that I'm getting from people. Nice. So it's been a super valuable conference. So thank you for doing this because it's awesome.
Yeah, well, no, thank you for being here. And you did one session already. You were a replacement in that session with Scott Scarano, Kenji Cormado, Dan Luthi, and you. You were all on this panel together, which was supposed to originally be Scott Scarano, how to run an accounting practice, and it pivoted to more of how are we helping each other as a community, as you just said. And I think we're okay to say it. It was because Josh Lance was supposed to be on that panel, and Josh is having some issues, unfortunately diagnosed with cancer, and had something come up where he was hospitalized and couldn't make it here. So you want to give us I popped in when I could to that session, but you want to give us a little recap of how that went?
Yeah, the session went great because, we touched on why Josh wasn't there. But it still went into the topic of how to run an accounting practice without you in it. So that was the original topic to begin with. So we talked about how we as a community kind of pitched in to with Josh. There was a call to action, when Josh got sick, how can we kind of plug in, help his team while he's out? So there's a few of us firm owners that plugged in and met with his team on a regular basis and made sure that they felt supported even though their leader needed to take the time away. And then we also talked about in our own practices, because that's a wake-up call when a colleague goes through something like that, how can we set up our own practices so that we can be prepared for a life event like that, or even just to be able to step away from your firm, and also it builds value in your firm if you're not in the everyday client work as well.
Yeah, create a sustainable firm. It can run without you, I think is extremely important.
Absolutely.
Because it can be transferable then, or you can just step away if you need.
Well, I was just going to add, just to put a finer point, I think a lot of us, when we start firms, we start for various reasons, but we don't always have the end in mind.
No.
We don't always have that succession plan in place.
Right.
So, it's a little bit of a wake-up call to be like, oh, hey, this is something that we need to think about. No matter how, Josh is a young guy.
Right.
So it doesn't matter how old you are, you really need, as a firm owner, as a leader, you need to put systems in place to be able to handle that.
You do that. And what I was going to say is that you, Kenji, and Dan all stepped up to help Josh's team. Was there just different areas that you had expertise that he needed help with that Dan had, that Kenji?
Yes.
How did that work overall?
Yes. So Kenji, of course, in his Kenji-ness was the coordinator in making all of the connector.
Yep.
Dan plugged in on the financial side, on the kind of the apps and tech side, and working with his leadership team there. I plugged in on the tax side. I regularly communicated with his tax manager. Great gal, but it's like until folks are kind of pushed into a role of leadership, a lot of accountants especially, I think, are super happy being in the background, grinding out the work, doing the things, and so it just takes a little confidence boost to get them to that leadership level.
And now you have another session this afternoon which I think it's titled Bringing Joy to Accounting.
It is.
Which is your theme, your motto, what do you call it?
My mission.
Your mission, there you go.
Yes.
And so why don't you give us a little rundown
Sure.
on how that session's going to run?
Sure. So my session, I'm going to start out by giving just my story and how I got here and why my mission is bringing joy to accounting. And then really just sharing with the audience who we are. So we have a group of companies that's overall called Keymaster. A lot of people don't even hear that that name Keymaster, but I think
saw
you've heard
that
it.
name for the first time 6 months ago. Whoa, you started another business? What's this Keymaster?
That's right. Yeah, Keymaster's been in the background the whole time, but what it really represents is our family of companies that are all working together to bring the mission of bringing joy to accounting.
And speak about those companies, because there's multiple companies you have
There's
under
multiple
that umbrella.
companies, yes. So in 2019, we founded Breakaway Bookkeeping and Advising, and so that was set up to make it easy for folks who wanted to go into practice, but were very overwhelmed with all that it takes to have an accounting practice. So we handle all the back office, that's the marketing, the management, the community. You get to be a part of a firm while still running your own practice. And so we kind of made it so it's the best of both worlds for all of our Breakaway advisors. So that's been in place since 2019. A year later, I purchased a tax firm, Sherwood Tax and Accounting. The firm had been around since 2008, so I purchased an existing practice because while Breakaway is awesome and we are bringing joy to accounting in that realm, it left out tax, and I felt like tax needs some joy for sure. It
Yes,
is
it
one
does.
area that
Yes,
it
it
needs
does.
some joy. So that was the purpose in buying the tax practice, and then 6 months after that, we started Cadencia, which is an outsourced staffing company out of Guadalajara, Mexico, and so. Again, just trying to bring solutions to accountants to make everybody's lives easier. That's that piece of the puzzle, is really leveraging an outsourced offshore team to do tasks and take on work that we're having a little hard time finding accountants in the US right now. So we needed to solve for that.
Yes, you are. But not only accountants, executive assistants.
Absolutely, yes.
you
We have
too?
some really lovely executive assistants there.
We do, and I have Hisela, who came from there, that's working with me, and she's been awesome. So thank you for that. We appreciate that. And she's sitting right over there for anybody that wonders. So what's the next addition to Keymaster? Is there a thought process there?
Well, you might have to ask my partner Martin, because he's always got his eyes on the horizon where I'm just, in the weeds here. But I think we do want to focus on what we're doing right now. We do have another brand too called Starboard Collectives.
There was another.
Yeah,
Okay.
there is. It's called Starboard Collectives, and it was an acquisition that we made. Tracy Beck is the CEO of that, and it's great because she runs it, and it's like really doesn't take a lot of work from us other than really as like a board. But that's for CEO coaching. Right now we've been niched in the moving and storage industry just because there's some of these groups that have been around for 20 years, these CEO and coaching groups, but we want to widen the net. We want to make it available even to accountants to join a group because there's so much value in really small groups, and it gets real vulnerable. Which for sharing financials, really talking about tough stuff with a smaller group of people, and just to be able to make your firm better.
All right. Speaking of making your firm better, you went through a process with Sherwood Tax recently of changing the way you operate there. You bought Sherwood in 19 after it was around 11 years already.
Right.
Was the purchase, did it go as smooth as you expected, or was there hurdles that you had to overcome?
There was definitely hurdles. Yeah, it was a little more of a traditional practice than I had thought it was. Still a lot of hourly billing was happening. They started to make the transition to more value pricing and subscription pricing, but we, in the last year, we have really just said no more hourly billing. Everybody's going to go on subscription pricing. We raised fees a lot. We culled the client list a lot, and it's not a one and done. We're going to continue to do that. So we're going to be sending proposals out again this fall. Going to go through the same process. Not as huge of a lift this year, because we did most of the work last year.
You had a huge lift last year.
It took a toll, for sure.
Yep.
So you got to hear my struggles about that last year. But yeah, we're going to continue to do that and really bring more advisory into it, bring more of the higher touch, because, and Dawn talked about this a little bit when she was talking too, that I realized that we're giving a high level of service. And so why should we charge, the same prices that a tax shop does, that's really just putting numbers on a form? When we're interacting with our clients, we're giving them advice, we're giving them proactive estimates, we're doing all these advisory things, but we weren't charging for it.
Right.
So now we're just going to really recognize our value that we do bring and charge for that appropriately.
I love that, because I say that all the time. we give away way too much. Wow, jinx. But that's amazing. But clients appreciate the services and they know there's a value to it. I'm sure you had some, kickback, like, sorry, we're not going to do that.
Yep.
Are those still clients, or were those the culling the base?
I was at the point, and maybe I was even like at a phase of burnout, that I'm just like, if I got any pushback at all, and because we still have the demand coming in, we still have so much demand for our services, that if I got any pushback at all, I'm like, if you don't see the value, I'm not interested in working with you. And there were some clients, they were like, well, I have to think about it. I'm like, if you have to think about it, I don't have time. So I got another firm who's willing, or another company that's willing to come in, pay double what you're paying.
Right.
So that's my goal. Like, I want to work less and earn more.
That's one of the goals of this conference, is to teach how to do that. So that's important. And we've had some really good speakers on that. Another goal of this conference, another hugely important thing for me with this conference, or in general in our profession, is community. And I know community is big for you. You want to talk about why that's so important to you?
It's yes. In fact, it's one of our core values that we have. I talked about that in the session this morning, because people. So the question that was asked to me was like, well, why did you agree to help? And I'm like, because when I say something's a core value, it means it's core to who I am and how I behave and all the decisions that I make. So of course I'm going to plug in to another colleague that needs support, and it's a core pillar of Breakaway. So we always say work for yourself, but not by yourself, because we can't all be experts at everything.
Correct.
We all need folks to lean on. We've got a Breakaway advisor who's going to be going on maternity leave in a few months. Well, if you had a solo practice and you're going on maternity leave, chances are, I know when I did, my baby was next to me while I was, doing the tax returns, because that's just how it went. But we have the ability to plug into the community and really lean on that. And then, so that's our little Breakaway community. But then it's also a part of our DNA to be a part of this wider accounting community and go to these conferences and connect with other professionals and learn from other folks' best practices and how is this working for you, and this is how it's working for me. It's so valuable.
I think it's so valuable too. And there's half of this, the group here today, I've seen it at other conferences, but there's half of these people, at least I haven't before. And I'm like, wow, this is cool that there's these new people that I haven't seen, and I'm trying to reach out and say hi, although I'm crazy at this conference, running all over, but trying to say hi, because I actually meant to send out a message to, we're in a group text together, and I want to send a message out to that. Make sure you reach out to somebody that you have never met before. And I didn't do it, and I should have done that. Because
it's not too late.
I know, I agree.
We've got a little left in the day. I know, because you're right, and I've met some folks that are hugely valuable contacts, so good job, Randy, putting this together, because it's been fantastic for that too. It's not just all the usual suspects.
For sure. So you said that's one of your core values. Then we talked about bringing joy to accounting. We talked about community. Is there other core values that fall into the?
Yes, there are. And so we talk about self-care is a core value at Sherwood Tax, and that's another one. It's a tough one though, because I preach at my staff all the time, because I tell them, like, this isn't a core value just to live on our website, and just so they know, I'm like, this is a selfish thing. So Nayo talked about this in her session today, where she said whenever someone takes vacation, their productivity goes up. So I'm like, I'm being selfish as a firm owner to tell you to go on vacation. So one of my tax manager is taking her first vacation in 6 years.
What?
Yes. And we credit the Cadencia team for that, and we've done some other things in the firm that's allowed her to do that. Everyone should be doing that. And so I was thinking today too, we really need to have a mandatory PTO. So self-care is huge, because your burnout is real. I know
that.
We know that, and I've got the fingers pointing back at myself as well, that I need to be mindful of that. But we have other core values. Transparency is a core value. I'm going to talk about all of these in my session today.
I love transparency.
Transparency, that's another. It's one that's tougher than you'd think.
Yeah.
Because some people think they want to know the truth, but they don't really want to know the truth.
Yeah, I agree. Vulnerability. I don't know if that'd be a core value, but to me, vulnerability is like so important, and that actually I think came out in your session earlier today.
It did.
Because I didn't see the whole thing, but I'm sure there was a lot of vulnerability happening when you guys were all sharing stories up there.
Yeah.
So
yes, it's critical. I agree.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, one, I appreciate you being here. but any bow you want to put on top of what you're doing overall, or the community, or the discussions, or just the fun that the award show was last night.
I mean, let's just talk about that dance party. Can we just
Oh,
talk
there you
about
go, the
that? Because
dance
that's what
party.
I was going to talk about, this particular community, and
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that in my presentation too. That, like, I love that we can all have that kind of fun together. I love that we can make jokes about ourselves, that we can boogie on that dance floor like we do. I mean, people don't know that accountants are really fun and cool. So
That's
I
what we
love
need
that
to get out
we
there.
need to get that out there and showcase that, because I think under the circumstances like this, we can party with the best of them, and we have a great time together.
So my wife cannot watch this, because I'm going to say something now that I actually spent about 45 seconds dancing on the dance floor.
I saw it. I
well,
witnessed
you,
it.
you,
I
you
might have
were
had
training
something
me,
to do with it.
and I don't, and I never do that. But I was okay with it. I was like, all right,
Okay,
this
let
is
me
all right.
run this idea past you
Yeah.
then, because after watching Will Lopez on the dance floor, I challenged all of us in our little friend group, what if we all took salsa lessons, and then by the next conference we might actually feel more confident on the dance floor?
I've thought about doing that, because it's like, I look, I go, it looks fun, but no, I can't do it. I just
Right.
don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So if somebody teaches me, then maybe that's it. All
Okay.
right, we'll work on that.
Yeah, let's work on that.
All right, well, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Sitting down and talking, and I'm really looking forward to your presentation later.
Same. Thank you,
All right.
Randy, and thank you for doing this conference. It's awesome.
Oh, I appreciate that.